Let me once again welcome you all to this place and give the floor to the real experts. Jesus, thank you very much. I'm grateful for your presence. I'm going to be addressing you informally, if you don't mind. This is a very important topic for the present and for the future, the issue of the Integrity Pact. Let me first of all put this conference in its context, the context of Transparency International, an organization with over 100 countries. In the Spanish chapter, we develop a set of activities aimed at positive things like generating tools, fostering transparency in the society, in the institutions, and then at the same time, the idea is to prevent corruption, to combat corruption. So these are the two main aspects. I cannot explain everything we do. It's not the purpose of the day, but I wish to dwell on the fact that the Integrity project is the context or the framework of this conference. The Integrity project is financed through a competitive project. We competed against hundreds of institutions, and we were shortlisted until we managed to win the bid. It's financed by intended initiative, and what we do with the people that we have, the team that is led by Ana Revuelta, Fernando González, Eva Argaba, Esteban Arribas, who will be here, César Cruz, and David Martinez. We've been developing this project on three main pillars. One of them, the compliance, regulatory compliance area. Another important pillar is the topic of today, the issue of the Integrity Pacts. And the third pillar would be related to the development of the Transparency Act here in Spain. So the second pillar is the Integrity Pact, as I mentioned. And we have senior researchers as Manuel Villoria, Beltrán Gallén, Silvina García Lupo. It's important to mention them as well because they've been working many hours on the project. So once I have acknowledged everybody, I'd like what I wanted you to see is the set of people developing these actions. As for the Integrity Pact, they are a new figure here in Spain. We recently started these pacts with the main city council of Spain, the Madrid City Council. This idea is well developed in other countries, in other chapters. There are three main pillars in the Integrity Pacts. The first two ones are the public institution offering the contracts, and then the companies bidding for the contract, and then the third pillar is the civil society. In this case, it is an organization like Transparency International, and its monitors accrediting that there are clauses about integrity, good governance, transparency, which are being complied with. So this is like a triangle, which is supposed to be beneficial for the society, and the idea is to accredit to the citizens that the contracts are being made in a transparent framework, something that the society is demanding. So we've made an agreement, an Integrity Pact with the City Council of Madrid, and just to sum up, because I don't wish to extend myself here, I do wish to dwell on the importance of the two tables. A first table has to do with the international dimension, the European dimension of the Integrity Pacts, and the second one is more local, more national, so it is more connected with the Integrity Pacts, the pact that we've signed with the City Council in this case. So this is the idea of the conference, to look at the Integrity Pacts in depth, looking at this important project, and discuss the objectives of Transparency International. So I hope this will be a useful conference for all of you. It does have a great deal of quality, given the level of the speakers and the topics. So Thank you very much for having come.
Buenos días.
Good morning. Let's start the first roundtable on the Integrity Pacts. The topic of the conference today, as well as giving information to all of you about a new tool, it's been implemented in some countries since the 90s, in fact, but we also want to introduce the European Union variable in it so that we can be aware that this is a project that goes far beyond our country. Europe has been implementing these pacts as pilot pacts for a year and a half. The project, in fact, was developed 3 years ago. And in parallel, we have been involved in an integrity pact for 2 years. In the last few months, we started the first one with the council, the City Council of Madrid. So this was an opportunity. Today is an opportunity for us to see the dimension of the project, a project going beyond a national member state project. It goes beyond to being a transnational one. So the transparency issue is of concern for the European authorities, and it is also of concern to many other authorities here in Spain. Representing the European Commission, we have Pascal Borgmans, head of the unit of the DG Regio, implementing the Integrity Pact. 17 projects across the European Union that he will be discussing. Also representing the implementation of the pact, we have Gabriela Nagy with us from Hungary. She is the representative in Hungary of public contracting from Transparency International Hungary. So I believe she is the person very successfully developing, and with very hard work, developing the Integrity Pact in Hungary. And this is why we thought that it would be a great opportunity for us to bring her here. As we will see during the morning, there are variations in the Integrity Pacts. It can be consulting contracts. But the idea underlying is to give transparency between government and companies in everything that has to do with efficiency in public contracting. The idea is for all of us to benefit from all that. We also have representatives from the the Stock Market Commission. So it's a very sort of the CNMC. Without further ado, I wish to give the floor to Mr. Pascal Borgmans, who will explain the European Commission project.
Buenos días a todos. I don't speak, unfortunately, Spanish, so I will have to give my presentation in English. But I hope you can follow me, at least also via the interpretation. So thank you, Esteban, for the introduction. As you already said, I work in DG Regional and Urban Policy for the European Commission. And in our unit, we deal mainly helping member states and supporting member states to build up their administrative capacity for the management of the funds. And one of the topics we are dealing more and more with increasingly is anti-fraud and corruption measures, because also the Commission in general has a stronger focus on fraud and corruption since a few years, especially since the publication of the first anti-corruption report. We can see clearly a shift in all our policies from a more ex post to a more ex ante approach. So much more, instead of finding irregularities and applying corrections, much more to a preventive approach, much more trying to avoid the errors and fraudulent behavior up front. We apply a zero tolerance policy for fraud and corruption, and so in no cases it will be accepted. And it also actually turns out that the number of fraudulent cases and corruption cases are still relatively small when you look at the total share of irregularities. But we especially are so concerned about it because it has a very high reputational risk for our policy. So you only need one fraudulent case, one corruption case, and it can spoil the image of the policy as a whole. So that's also from our pure own interest why we pay so much attention to fraud and corruption. As you probably are aware, regional policy is, together with agricultural policy, the largest budget within the European Union. And so also from that point of view, we are very much concerned. For this program period, 2014-20, we have a budget of 352 billion euros. And Spain is, as you might know, one of the major beneficiaries of this policy. You're now the third largest beneficiary after Poland and Italy. I had prepared a presentation. I don't know if the presentation is can be. Is it there on the screen, or maybe? Just see.
La presentación del señor.
Yeah. Okay, gracias. So what I wanted to let you know, we change really, there's a much clearer focus on anti-fraud and corruption. And it's not only words, also when you look at our regulation for this program period, 2014-2020, we have introduced a new article, which is this Article 125(4)(c), which gives a legal basis also for the Commission to ask from member states and the bodies which are in charge of the management of the funds to take effective and proportionate anti-fraud measures. So this is this article which is written down here, and we use it as a kind of a hook on the basis of which we have taken a lot of initiatives in the area of anti-fraud and corruption. So we have a much stronger legal basis than it was before. So what have we done until now? We have prepared a lot of guidance documents, guidelines, clarifications, which member states can use, for example, how to set up fraud risk assessments, how to identify risky projects, and also define mitigating measures, how to address those risky projects. So they can all be downloaded here at the website, as you can see the list. We did a lot of awareness raising in the last years. We organized a whole range of seminars on anti-fraud and corruption. And it was really about practical tools, so not so much about the theory and that we don't accept fraud and corruption, but really what can you do about it, what kind of tools exist already, and what can we learn from each other. And also one of those seminars we had here in Spain. That was by the end of 2014. Then we have, of course, the integrity packs, because after the awareness raising, promotion and publicity, it's all nice, but at the end of the day, what can you do concretely? And I will come back later on to our integrity packs, the pilots which we are supporting. And then we also offer to the member states a data mining tool, which is called Arachne. And Arachne is a tool where, let's say, all the data which come from the management of operational programs, from the individual projects, which we get from managing authorities, so in most cases ministries or regional authorities. So the number of projects, the beneficiaries, the budget, how much has been paid, etc. These data can be linked to external database sources from about the status of all kinds of companies and contracting authorities. And with this big data mining tool, you can identify more risky sectors for fraud and corruption, more risky contracting authorities, and also more risky suppliers. And in that base, of course, it does not mean the outcome that fraud or corruption takes place in these projects or in those sectors, but you know that there's a higher risk, so you can adapt your control strategies to focus much more on certain sectors of beneficiaries. So these are just a few tools, concrete tools, which we have undertaken right now. Before I go into the topic of the 17 pilot projects, I want to share a few slides and data with you. You might know that public procurement is a hotspot for fraud and corruption. And during the procedures, there's a lot of opportunities to abuse the rules and to bend the rules and apply fraudulent behavior. Secondly, public procurement is also a very large budget. So if we can see that 15% of the total gross domestic product of the European Union is channeled through public procurement. So it's a huge amount of money, public money, which is spent via public procurement procedures. And thirdly, in money terms, when we look at our EU funding, the regional policy funds from the European Commission, they take in a lot of member states a huge amount of the share of the total public investment. So in the slide you see on the left side, for example, countries like Slovakia, Hungary or Bulgaria, almost all public investments are in one way or another co-financed by European funds. You see Spain is slowly below the European average, but still it's just to show you how a large amount of EU funding has an impact on the public investments in the country, which is in most of the cases also tendered out via public procurement. And we also know it's a hotspot for fraud and corruption, so it's a risky mix for fraud and corruption, and that's why we pay so much attention to it. The second slide shows the quality of governance index. That's an index which is measured by the Gothenburg Institute in Sweden, but in close cooperation with DG Regio, DG Regional Policy, in which we mix three elements: corruption, the impartiality of public services, and the application of rule of law. And most of these indexes and indicators are available always at national level. When you look at the corruption index from Transparency International or the World Bank governance indicator, they're always available at national level. But of course, we from regional policy are very much interested to see also what happens at regional level. And it's interesting to see from this slide that it's not everywhere equally spread also within countries. And actually Spain is one of the interesting examples, together with Italy, that you can see it's not everywhere the quality of government is equally assessed all over the country. And we know that the quality of the administrations plays also an important role for the quality of public investments. So again, just to show you an important factor, dimension, which one has to take into account. And the last slide or map I want to show you is a result from a project which is called DigiWist, which you probably might know, which is a project which is supported by the European Union and to look for more and better quality indicators how to measure fraud and corruption, because we know fraud and corruption is not transparent, is not directly available, so it's placed under the radar, so it's not always very easy to measure. So a lot of the indicators, again also the indicator from Transparency International, is perception-based, is based on surveys, asking people. So this and DigiWiz, they have been trying to look more for factual, objective indicators. And this is a slide of the corruption risk index for public procurement. And again, also at regional level. And what is the interesting result from here? It's not so diverse. It's relatively equally spread across Europe. It's not, if you keep in mind the previous map, you can see corruption on the base of public procurement takes place everywhere. This index again doesn't show that corruption takes place in these countries or in these regions, so the darker the color, but it takes into account, for example, factors from if there's only one bid, or if the data which are introduced in the TED database are incomplete, which for us are all indicators where there might be a higher risk of fraud and corruption, corrupt behavior. And that's why you can see here that it's relatively equally spread across Europe. So enough about the context. Let's maybe say a few more words about the integrity packs which we support right now. Esteban already explained in the introduction that the integrity packs actually have two key elements. The tool which is developed by Transparency International. First of all, it's the agreement between the contracting authority, the beneficiary, the project owner, and the bidders, and the individual independent project monitor to abstain from corrupt practices and to conduct a transparent procurement. So which is a nice strong statement, and which is also legal value in most of the cases. So it's not just a nice intention, but it really also is a clear document with legal status. And then, of course, the second important element is to nominate this external independent monitor, which can be somebody from a chapter of Transparency International, but also in our cases we have also other civil society organizations which play this role of independent monitor. It's first of all a collaborative tool where you try to join forces, so everybody plays his role and shares his knowledge and experience. So it takes as a basic condition this joint cooperation. It's clearly targeting to prevent fraud and corruption, so not, as I said at the introduction, to find fraud and corruption at the end, but really to already upfront to prevent it as much as possible. And it's a flexible tool. There's not a one-size-fits-all model. What we also see from our pilot projects across Europe, there are different models possible, different setups, so it can be tailor-made. And of course, when you look at here in the schematic version, again, what I just explained, the three main partners, the independent observer, the contracting authority, and the tenderers. What we have learned until now already, that it's important that the full independence of the monitor is guaranteed. And one way to guarantee this independence is that the financing of this independent monitor does not come from the budget of the contracting authority, but comes from, in our case, it comes from the European Commission. It doesn't come from the contracting authority. So it's of course, it creates already a kind of a less independent relationship if the contracting authority finances the independent monitor, which makes it more difficult also to take once in a while position against the contracting authority. So the integrity packs, the 17 pilot projects which we support here in a very short summary. The project runs from 2016 until the end of 2020. Until the beginning of 2020, 4 years. So we're now about 1.5 years under implementation. 17 projects selected. If you look at the total budget, which all these projects represent, it's over 920 million euros. So we have a mix of larger infrastructure projects, but also smaller scale, for example, ICT projects, and I will come back to that later on. This 920 million covers both EU financing plus the national co-financing. And our grant to those 17 pilot projects, plus Transparency International in Berlin as the headquarter who coordinates the project, our grant is 7.2 million euros in order to implement these 17 pilot projects. What is also interesting and what we also were looking for, it's really a pilot project in the true sense that we really want to learn from these pilot projects, and as already said informally beforehand, we do not expect that these will be all 17 success stories. Of course, we hope for this, and we're also working in order to make them success stories, but we really want to learn from it. And we have some hiccups in some of the projects, so we try to see what we can learn from this and also to see how we can improve this later on. So that's why we also have selected projects spread across very different sectors. We have projects in the classic sectors of transport and environment. We have a railway project, we have 2 public transport, urban transport projects, we have a flood prevention project, but also other sectors like the ICT sector and the health sector, which are normally known for being more prone to fraud and corruption. So we want to learn from how the model can work in different settings. These are the countries where we support the integrity pacts. We have 4 in Italy, 3 in Romania, 2 in Hungary, and then for the other countries we have everywhere 1 pilot project. Of the 17 pilot projects at the moment, 10 have signed their integrity pacts, so there's really a signing and formal document. 4 integrity pacts are close to signing, so we expect them to be around this summer to be signed. And then we have 3 integrity pacts where we see a serious delay, and unfortunately all 3 are in Romania. But nevertheless, also even in the difficult circumstances in Romania, we still see already some interesting lessons learned, where, for example, the 3 monitors, so next to Transparency International, there are 2 other civil society organizations involved. They're very much closely cooperating with the National Procurement Office to get the integrity pacts included in tertiary legislation. So even despite maybe the delay of the project, we still see lessons learned and some progress in Romania. So maybe some of the main conclusions and benefits which we can draw already after 1.5 years of implementation. First, we see that in some cases, or many cases actually, the projects contribute to increased efficiency and effectiveness. So we get better value for money, which is of course also in our interest as European Commission supplying the grants, the EU financing for these projects. It acts certainly as a preventive early warning system for irregularities. So sometimes projects are kept on hold, so it creates delay, but for good reasons, because changes have to be introduced and we can avoid bigger problems which otherwise would have occurred later on in the process. A very important part and a very important share of the grant we give to the independent monitors goes to communication. Communication is a key element for an integrity pact. And to pick out just maybe one example, we support an urban city rail project in Cagliari, on Sardinia, in Italy. And we had invited the contracting authority last year for a seminar in Brussels. And he said that for him, one of the key added value the monitor brought in was to set up the whole communication strategy with the local population, to explain why certain steps were taken, why maybe sometimes certain delays were created. So really to keep the local population informed, and also when there were complaints, how to deal with these complaints. So I think that was, he pointed out as an important role the independent monitor, in this case Transparency International Italy, played. Of course, we also heard more and more, certainly in some countries, that companies do not even bother anymore to tender because they know, well, the whole market has already been pre-arranged, it has already been decided who is going to get the contract, so they don't take even the effort anymore to participate in tender procedures. And what we also try and hope with the integrity pacts is to show that even in countries maybe with not the best image on this area, that there always good examples, good performing contracting authorities, and which are really interested to start up an open tender procedure. So it can also really to help to strengthen the reputation of a public body as a reliable contracting authority. And also the integrity pacts can help to build the trust, or maybe in some cases even to rebuild the trust with the local population, with the citizens, as a role as a public authority you can and you should play. We also have good examples of that the integrity pacts can lead to cost savings by avoiding irregularities, by speeding up the procurement procedures. Cost savings can take place. It's not everywhere the case, it's also not the very first objective, but there are examples where there also is a clear economic benefit. And also in the same way, the implementation period can be reduced by a good guidance role of a monitor who knows and explains which are all the steps which have to be taken. I think this slide I wanted to show you that the integrity pacts, it's not only about fraud and corruption, it has much more dimensions to take into account and much more also interesting features which we try to address. And then in my last slide, well, as I said, we are running the project now for 1.5 years. So what are the early lessons which we can learn until now? We could already see in some areas cost savings. So for example, in Bulgaria, Latvia and Hungary, because of the more efficient setup of procurement procedures, and maybe Gabi can share later on a bit more on the experience in Hungary. We also saw that there was a already more fair play among competitors. So just to take away this image like everything has already been pre-arranged, no, there's really an open competition where bidders can participate on equal footing. So we saw that, for example, in Bulgaria and Italy. And as already said before, the importance of communication, where I think maybe, I cannot put a percentage on it, but for sure a large share of our grant, which we give as European Commission to these projects, goes into communication and transparency. So for all the 17 pilot projects also communication strategies have been developed. On the negative side, we see that despite all the good intentions of the partners involved, sometimes there are external factors, political decisions, elections coming up, which might delay projects or which might projects put on hold. And then within the context of the integrity pacts, it's very difficult to deal with these issues. You cannot, well, the integrity pacts here don't have an impact unfortunately, on the elections, but it can delay the implementation of a project. And then, for example, the monitor has to stop working because there's, for the moment, no work to do. And we had already some experiences in this in Romania above all, but also in Bulgaria and Greece, where some delays were created, and the role of the monitor, well, had to be suspended for a while. So they have to wait until the project will be relaunched again. So this is what I can say from our experience until now, and I'm of course happy to listen to your comments and questions later on. Gracias, muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Pascal.
Thank you very much, Pascal. To this map, maybe we could add the City Council of Madrid. We are currently preparing 2 integrity pacts, and we have 4 more that are quite advanced in negotiation, and this had to be mentioned. And as Pascal is saying, we have advantages, disadvantages. Everything has to do with context, but I wanted to highlight this. It is a tool that goes far beyond the objective that we mentioned at the beginning, to fight against corruption. It also allows us to identify areas of improvement, areas subject to risk with regard to public resources. Sometimes in administration, the times don't really coincide with political movement. We have pressures, etc. And it is true that all of this can be improved through transparency with a different approach to public management. We're now going to listen to Gabriela Nagy's presentation, and then we can have a Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Buenos dias. I also have to apologize because my Spanish is non-existent, so I will have to continue in English. I'm Gabriela Nagy, and I work at the Hungarian chapter of Transparency International, and I deal with public procurement and EU fund-related projects. And the reason why I am here today, because in Hungary, TI Hungary, Transparency International Hungary, started to work on integrity pacts some 7 or 8 years ago. So we have already some experience, and I hope that it would be useful for you if I share these experiences with you. So the speakers before me, and especially Mr. Boymans, already talked about what Integrity Pact is. Just wanted to add 2 or 3 more things. The thing is that the purpose of this trilateral agreement is to monitor one actual public procurement procedure, and ideally this Integrity Pact covers all phases of public procurement procedure, from the preparation of the documents until the execution of the contract. And an important element of this Integrity Pact is that the monitor regularly reports, regularly informs the public about its findings, about the findings of the monitor. So that's also a way to involve local residents or local citizens in this process. And as it was said, the tool itself was developed by the Secretariat of Transparency International in 1994, and interestingly enough, it has become very popular in in other parts of the world, not in Europe. So in countries like Mexico or India or Pakistan, it's a very widely used tool, but not in Europe. And I have the feeling, or I have the sense, although I haven't done any scientific research on this, but I know a little bit about the public procurement legislation in Mexico, that this tool became popular in countries where public procurement legislation or regulations are not so detailed, are not so strict. They don't have such a multi-layered control mechanism what we have here in Europe. And actually I think that's one of the key issue here, is that what we realized, at least in Hungary, but I believe it's similar in Europe as well, that we have these very detailed rules on public procurement procedure. We have a very well-established controlling mechanism, but still in practice somehow it doesn't work, or we see that public procurement is so prone to corruption. So the next slide, I don't want to spend too much detail on it because everybody knows what's at stake, that public procurement is a significant part of the economy, and but these data are from a EU study, or a study commissioned by the European Commission, that the European average, around 18% of corrupt project is a direct loss to the public. So we talk about huge amount of money that can lose due to corruption. But and according to this EU study, around 50% of the procedures might be infected with corruption. But the situation is even worse in Hungary. I just want to explain to you why we started to deal with the integrity pacts in Hungary. So according to our estimations, around 70 or 75% of the procedures might be infected by corruption, and this makes these contracts or these procurements more expensive by 20 or 25%. And in Hungary, a typical way of corruption is bid rigging by tailor-made tenders. And you have to know that according to the official data, around 30% of the procedures, but according to our estimation, it may be even 50% of the public procurement procedures have only one bidder. So in fact, there is no real competition in public procurement procedures in Hungary. We also see that the control mechanisms in Hungary are very complex and very complicated, but they are highly ineffective. Also, as Mr. Boymans already said, most of our public procurement procedures are financed from EU funds, but of course the European institutions are not made to control all these projects. Only in Hungary, between 2007 and 2013, there were more than 60,000 projects financed from EU funds. So of course there is no institution that can control all of these procurements or projects. Also in Hungary, legal remedy is expensive, is relatively expensive, especially for small companies, and also it's coming from, unfortunately, it's coming from our political situation, but the independence of these institutions is also questionable. So as a result, companies really lost their trust in public procurement procedures. We also see it at Transparency International Hungary. We get complaints from small companies that they saw what happened during the public procurement procedures. They might even have evidence, but they don't have the money to initiate a legal remedy, especially when they are not sure that they would get justice, at the end of the procedure. So that's also another reason why there are no bidders basically during the public procurement procedures, because when a company thinks that already the winner is already selected prealably or previously, then they will not spend money and time to prepare the document, to prepare a bid. The next slide is just an example how EU funds are used in Hungary. Of course, I hope that this is an exceptional case, and it's not always like that. But just so that you see what I'm talking about. This is a case that was detected and investigated by Olaf, and basically here a Hungarian hospital wanted to purchase a medical device, partially financed from EU funds. And the supplier was a Slovak company who bought the device from the factory at a price of 260,000 euro and then sold it to the Hungarian hospital at a price of 1.7 million Hungarian forint. So the price is like 7 times higher. And then the Slovak company, the supplier, after he deducted his intermediary fee, the difference, he transferred the difference to a company registered on the Seychelles Islands. And then later on, this offshore company provided interest-free loan to the Hungarian hospital. So basically, at the end, the money ended up in the Hungarian hospital. So just you can see that corruption has very refined methods, and it's not easy to detect them. So since you see that the situation is really bad in Hungary, or at least that's what we thought at Transparency International Hungary. So in 2009, we started to think about using integrity pacts. Of course, we didn't have any experiences, so we studied the experiences of Mexico and India and Pakistan, and then in 2009 we started a kind of roadshow, that's how we call it. So we went to major Hungarian cities and we made like mini conferences similar to the one that we have here today, and trying to explain what this tool is. We of course we could only speak about the international experiences, and of course in all cities we met the same criticism or doubts. People thought that this is just another administrative burden, this is just another layer of control. And then we tried to emphasize the advantages that for them, for a municipality, for example, it can have good PR value, and we believe that this might even decrease the prices. So we tried to convince municipalities to be involved in an integrity pact. So finally in 2010 we had our first integrity pact signed with the Central Bank of Hungary. It was on procuring taxi services, and then over the years we had 4 more integrity pacts, 1 more with the Central Bank of Hungary, then 2 with the local district, local government of Budapest. One was a reconstruction of a nursery, the other one was a construction of a playground, and then we had 1 integrity pact in the countryside, which was a water supply infrastructure development project. And here the project itself was financed by Switzerland, by the Swiss Confederation, and it was Switzerland who insisted on having an integrity pact. In the other cases, it was the contracting authority or the municipality itself who wanted to try out to pilot this project. So the lessons we learned, although of course we only had so far 5 completed integrity pacts, so it's not a scientific evaluation, but what we found is especially the projects with the public procurements with the 13th district of Budapest, there they were very satisfied because the prices were lower by 30% compared to what they estimated in advance. It was due to the fact that there were more bidders in the public procurement procedure. So alone the fact that Transparency International, which has a relative good brand name in Hungary, so the fact that we participated in this public procurement procedure ensured the companies that this might be a clean public procurement procedures. So also such companies submitted bids who wouldn't participate in a public procurement procedure. And if you think about that, the cost or the fee of an integrity pact is usually around 0.5% of the project or of the contract compared to the savings of 30%. We think that it's a good deal for the municipality as well. So what we saw that there was an increased trust from the companies, there was an increased competition, and of course the municipality or the companies, it was the company owned by the municipality, they could use this exercise as a good PR, so it was a good PR value for them. And then since we managed to, although at first it's always difficult, the start is always difficult, and at operative level they always have some suspicions that who are we and what we want, who we are and what we want. Usually we manage to build good connection with them, good cooperation, and usually we have more integrity pacts with these contracting authorities later. Also, the 13th district wanted to have a new integrity pact last year, but since we started this big pilot project with the Commission, we didn't have the resource to work with them. And then I will skip this slide because Mr. Boymans talked about this pilot project launched by the European Commission. And so within this pilot project, Hungary has two projects. We monitor two public procurement procedures. One of them is a construction of a motorway. Actually, it's the final section of a motorway. It's like 20-25 kilometers. And the other one is the construction of a flood reservoir. The flood reservoir, we signed the integrity pact, but the public procurement itself will only start in the second half of the year. But with the motorway construction, we are already in the middle of the first public procurement procedure, which is for the design of the motorway, and there we are evaluating the bids now. And then what we achieved so far is that, for example, the estimated value of the contract was originally 1.5 billion Hungarian forint. This was estimated by the contracting authority, and we work with an engineer expert because, of course, we are not engineers. So we managed to convince together with him the contracting authority that it's exaggerated, so they lowered the estimated value to 1.3 billion Hungarian forint, so 200 million forint was already saved. Then also, which is also very important, I think, that according to the original documents, what the contracting authority prepared, the conditions for professional experiences and references were very limited, so they required that they have to have experience in constructing 4-lane motorway. So again, with the help of our engineer expert, we convinced them that if someone can build a 2-lane motorway, they can also build a 4-lane motorway. So, and they accepted most of our comments that we made to the documentation. So now the conditions and the requirements were less stringent, so we believe that more companies could bid. It's another thing that there were only 3 companies, the usual 3 companies who bid it, but still the theoretical possibility we had. And then since we launched these 2 projects, of course we had a press conference with Mr. Boyman's presence and so on, so we had some media attraction on this project. Since then, already 2 new municipalities are interested in making integrity pacts in Hungary, and I'm just mentioning this because it was very interesting, their reasons why they came to us to start an integrity pact. It's still under negotiation, but so their reason was because these 2 municipalities are relatively rich, one or two of the richest towns in Hungary. So they said that for years they are struggling with the fact that companies, that's what they heard from the market, that companies know that they are rich towns, and then they add an additional 20 or 25% to their prices when they submit a bid to these towns. And then the municipality can't really do anything about it, while the residents, the locals, criticize them or blame them why their procurements are so expensive. So for them, it's a way they also try to find ways to deal with these issues, and they also want to try integrity pacts for this reason. So that's all from my part now, but if you have any questions now or later, you can always contact me. Thank you. Gracias.
Thanks a lot, Gabi and Pascal.
Thank you very much, Gabriela and Pascal. We have enough time for questions and comments, so please go ahead.
¿Alguien quiere intervenir? ¿Sí? ¿Sí? Hay traducción o en inglés, como quieras.
Thank you for your presentations. I have your question for Mrs. Nagy. In your experience with the integrity pacts, have you found any obstacles by the local authorities? Maybe they weren't willing to do this, or in a context in which someone does not want to collaborate, what does the external monitor do? What can that entity do? And for Mr. Boymans, if someone says no to the collaboration, is there any legal tool or recommendation or something that we can use, or maybe just considering that it's a volunteer pact, we can't really do anything about this? Can you please introduce yourself? Carolina Diaz from the FIAP Foundation. I work on a project of transparency and corruption with Colombia, financed by the European Union.
Thank you for your question. Actually, it's a very valid question. With our previous Integrity Pact project, as I told you, especially with the 13th district municipality or the Central Bank of Hungary, so they came to us, they were interested and they wanted to do that. So with them, we didn't have this problem. But especially now, with these two projects we have within the pilot project launched by the European Commission, we faced this problem because actually it was the government, the managing authority, who applied for the Commission to participate in this project. And according to them, they informed about this, the contracting authorities, but still when we met them, we realized that they feel that the government, the managing authority, imposed this whole project on them. So it was not them who came and they wanted to do that. So it was very difficult, especially with the project on the motorway. There were lots of mistrust. I mean, we always had to talk directly to the CEO or the deputy CEO. It's a company. The contracting authority is a company owned by the state, because they thought that we will make bad media for them. We want to prove that they are corrupt and so on. So it took. We started negotiating the draft Integrity Pact in April, and we managed to sign it in October. It was very slow because every time I wrote a letter to the legal counselor of the company, I only got reply after 2 weeks or so, even a very short letter. And then later he explained to me that he couldn't send any email to me before the deputy CEO approved it. So it was really difficult. It took time, but then there were times when there were questions when the managing authority, who's also, it's the same ministry, who exercised the ownership rights over this company, they had to force them to comply. But now, as the whole public procurement, the monitoring of this public procurement procedure started, and now we are at an operative level with the employees of the contracting authority. Now we have very good cooperation with them. I mean, I think, the individual employee it's not them who are corrupt usually, so they were even welcoming us that they also see problems, so maybe they can deal with it. So there are difficulties, but somehow we have to get over them, and then with time it gets better.
Thank you as well for your question. No, I think this is clear a pilot. As I said, so 17 projects were selected for a 4-year period. In 2015, we launched 2 calls for expression of interest. One was addressing contracting authorities who could submit projects which they thought would be interesting for an integrity pact, and the other one was addressed to civil society organizations. So, and then we made the match, because in some cases there was not always a match. There was a civil society organization interested, but there was not a project available, and vice versa. And this led to these 17 projects, pilot projects, which we have right now. Also, maybe just to point out, the project is coordinated by Transparency International with the headquarters in Berlin. But as I said, not in every country we have Transparency as a national chapter working on the project. So in Poland, Romania and Italy, we have also other civil society organizations, which we find also interesting, because it should not be only become a Transparency International project. So clearly this pilot is on a voluntary basis. Our objective as Commission is to draw lessons from this. What can we see, what works, what doesn't work, but always in the back of our mind how we could use this and mainstream this more, perhaps for a next program period, where it maybe could be, we certainly do not have this discussion right now, but where, for example, it could be part of the legislation. And then again, I don't think it would be useful to say that for every project you need to have an integrity pact, because it wouldn't work. We have hundreds of thousands of projects all over Europe. But you could say maybe for the major projects, the projects above 50 million euros or above 100 million euros, you could make it more or less obligatory. But for the moment, it's on a voluntary basis.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more questions? Manuel Canyon. This is a question for Mr. Pascal. Europe, since 1996, has been working on the Green Book. This electronic format, digital format, could be maybe the main tool to avoid corruption and to boost transparency, or the electronic public procurement, considering that we haven't been able to launch it, maybe we should consider these integrity pacts. The citizens are signing something that is the fact that there has to be this integrity as part of the whole process.
I hope I understood your question correctly. Indeed, with the new public procurement directives, which had to be transposed by 2016, which were adopted in 2014 and had to be transposed by April 2016 by all member states. We first of all, that e-procurement becomes an obligatory element. It will be introduced in different phases, and indeed the Commission sees it as a very important tool to create more transparency in the procedures, to get better data available. From one of the maps I showed you, the one on the corruption risk index, that's still where the spread of scores across Europe was relatively equal. We still see a lot of member states do not fill in the obligatory single procurement documents for all relevant data, so they only do the minimum. And of course, now with e-procurement, we hope that the quality of the tenders also being introduced in the system will increase. And in that sense, we also get better data and can also compare member states and also, in our interest, regions better. So I think once again, the Integrity Pact is not now the solution for everything. It's a solution. It's one element of a wider package where we can fight fraud and corruption. And I think it's an interesting element for for all these different purposes, also, especially also what also Gabriele explained, for creating more trust also from local citizens. And that, of course, you don't achieve directly with e-procurement. And there, I think integrity packs can bring added value. So I think it's the combination of both, and they both have their own merits.
Buenos días.
Good morning, and thank you, both of you, for your very interesting speeches. Javier Moscoso, Director General for Transparency and Citizen Attention in the Madrid City Council. My question is related to the integration of these two tools, in the regulatory aspects of the laws, the regulations of the countries. With these instruments, we are kind of incorporating instruments that never formed part of contracts. It used to be contract between the company and the administration, and the last purpose of the contract was the society. But these pacts wish to integrate these third parties in the contracts. This means that from the very beginning of the process of the making of the contract, there will be someone representing the civil society, taking part of processes which involve elements of confidentiality in the making of the contracts. There are many conflicting interests, in fact. The process of the granting of the contract, the likely participation or no participation in the tables, in the processes also of the performance of the contract, which includes processes of validation of invoices, checking of the works. So a third party, in this case, it is pilot projects, but this third party involves that the bidder accepts to form part in order to guarantee the processes and all that. So for us in the City Council, this means a change in the list of conditions of a public contract. So we need to introduce this in the regulations regulating public contracts and public purchases, public procurement.
You can add maybe? Yeah. Yes. I think the different ways of achieving the objectives of integrity pacts. As Gabi already said, in especially countries outside Europe, some elements of integrity pacts have been integrated into national law. I refer to the case of Romania right now, where they're also trying to introduce the role of integrity pacts in tertiary law. But law is only one element. At the end of the day, it's about the implementation of the law. And what we see also very often, legislation is being introduced, and then there are hundreds of ways found to go around the regulation. But of course, it can be an important basis. Also in our case, what I tried to explain in my presentation, because we have this one small article now in our regulation, it gives us a stronger basis to take all these initiatives of integrity packs, developing guidance documents, setting up data mining tools. So it is important to have this legal basis, but it's not the only thing. It's not sufficient only. So I think it's also creating this whole atmosphere of convincing contracting authorities about all the other advantages. So not so much the stick, but also working with the carrot, saying, well, you can save costs in your project, you can speed up the project, you can regain public trust of your local population. These are also equally important elements which have to be stressed. So I think it's the mix of, again, the carrot and the stick, which I think is important.
If I can just add a few more things. With the legal issues, what we also faced problem in this regard. At least in Hungary, we interpreted the European directives and also the case law of the European Court of Justice that we can't really make the signature of this IP obligatory for the bidders, for the companies, because we can't make it as an exclusion ground. We can't have it as an exclusion ground for for companies if they don't sign the integrity pact. But for example, in Italy, they have a judgment from the European Court of Law, European Court of Justice, yeah, what they interpret in a way that they can do that. So that's what I feel the most, which is the most shaky a bit in Europe, whether we can make integrity pacts obligatory for companies or not. So I think it would be welcome to have a clear ruling on this, or maybe to modify the directives in this way. But otherwise, in Hungary, we don't see any other legal problems, so we can proceed. And although it's not obligatory for the companies to participate, and even if a bidder does not sign the integrity pact, we can still see all the documents the contracting authority produces, so we can still do the work. But it's true that the winning company, the winning bidder, will be necessarily part of the integrity pact, because we have a clause already in the draft contract, which is part of the public procurement documentation, that the winner, those who will sign the contract, will acknowledge that this integrity pact exists, will cooperate in implementing it, and so on. So in our opinion, or our position on this question is that we could improve the legal situation for integrity pacts, but it can still work under these circumstances as well. I don't know if it helps.
Muy bien, muchas gracias, Pascal and Gabi.
Thank you so much, Pascal and Gabi. We need to conclude this first roundtable here. We're starting a second one, and then we will have the conclusions of the day. So, Anna, when you wish, we can start the second table. Thank you very much.
Que ahora vamos a ser más.
No, vale, sí, que no sabía. Vale, sí.
Siguiente, tenemos el paso de...
Sí, yo creo que primero él, luego tú, luego Esteban. Sí.
Hoy tenéis el mando. Bueno, creo que Pablo no tiene, pero Carlos sí que ha traído.
Vale.
Sí. Ahí, a ver con este, ahí, ¿no? Sí, 1, 2. Sí, 1, 2, sí. 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 Hola. Sí, hola. Sí, sí, sí. Sí.
No, ahora, vale. Ya. Muy bien, pues vamos a dar paso a la segunda.
Okay, let's begin the second table, which focuses on Spain. We have our own challenges with regard to public procurement and the integrity pacts. Public procurements represent, from the financial perspective, over 15% of the GDP, and in Spain, even more than 18% of the GDP. But in qualitative terms, the public procurement issues affect the citizens in all our daily activities, in education, in transport, in everything. So it is very important to see how public funds are invested, as well as how much is invested, of course. In Spain, the CNMC 2 years ago assessed, the National Commission for Competition and Markets assessed the losses in public funds at 48 billion euros. Which is 4.5% of GDP in losses in this field. We've been told off by the European Commission recently, which always reminds us that we are one of the most opaque countries in public procurements, with insufficient controls in public procurements. But parallel to this is the fact that the system of regulating our public procurement system, our legal system in this respect, leaves very little space for external observers, for external elements, which is a key element of the Integrity Pact. This is what I meant when I said that we have our own difficulties, our own challenges in the field of public procurements. However, the international experience has told us that in different contexts, in different legal systems, including in Europe, the Integrity Pacts have served the purpose of improving transparency, of improving efficiency in different public procurement systems. We now have the opportunity of listening to Pablo Soto, who is head of the Governmental Department for Transparency and Open Governance in the City Council of Madrid. He is the person who encouraged the first Integrity Pact in our country. And then we will hear from Carlos Balmisa, Director for Internal Control in the CNMC, and we will hear from Esteban Arribas, also a researcher from the TI Spain organization. Pablo Soto, you have the floor. Thank you, Anna. Also, I wish to express my gratitude for having been invited to this conference. This is a very early experience for the City Council of Madrid to work with the Integrity Pact. I will talk about three main things. I'll give a brief explanation of the Integrity Pact in the City Council of Madrid. I'll explain the Línea Madrid project. This is where the Integrity Pact will be implemented, and then I will briefly explain what we believe this pact can contribute both to the City Council of Madrid and to the companies that may present their bids, and also the benefits for the society of Madrid. The transparency project, as I've always explained, was one of the main pillars of the government that took office in July of 2015 with the City Council board. We came to office and we found that the staff had great knowledge about transparency, but there was no specific department about transparency in the City Council of Madrid, with over 30,000 employees, 30,000 officials. There were no regulations on transparency either. So the first thing we did, we generated a specific department for open governance that I was appointed as head of. I was going to work with a new Director General. So we implemented or set in motion a working team, and we drafted the first transparency regulation with the cooperation of the civil society. I wish to thank Transparency International for their contributions with this work. And the result has been amazing. We can be proud of it. So I'm sometimes ashamed of talking about such a success of the City Council. But I am convinced that we can say that the regulation for transparency in the City Council of Madrid is the most advanced piece of legislation of the whole country on transparency issues. It includes the registration of mandatory lobbies, on the mandatory registration of lobbies. There is permission for access without identification, improving the limitations of the central government. But the transparency project of the City Council does not stop there. We decided to foster the first Integrity Pact, specifically with the largest contract of our department. The City Council of Madrid spends approximately 35% of its budget every year on public procurements. This means that 35% accounts for 1.7 million euros, 1,700 million euros every year. In my department, we deal with the citizen services for the whole of the city of Madrid. So when a person dials 010, they speak to the City Council for whatever procedure they wish information for, requesting registration in a cultural workshop, obtaining a copy of the identification document, whatever process or procedure for the citizens. So it is an absolutely strategic, essential service of the City Council. This Línea Madrid service needs to always be alive. It can never be dead. So this includes many people, around 1,000 people working directly or not directly on this service. Around 500 are staff of the company, the outsourced company, essentially for the 010 call center. I was there physically once, and it's an amazing amount of people answering phone calls non-stop. constantly. In 2016, 3.2 million phone calls were attended, just to give you an idea. And the company gives us support also in the 26 offices for citizen attention, citizen service, spread throughout the whole of the district. And in those offices, 2.4 million persons have been heard on the phone. So this is indeed a project affecting tens of services. So every time we implement a new service in the City Council, we look at how it affects the Citizen Service Department. So we train these 5 outsourced persons plus 270 people who are public officials working in the offices, then 70 people working in the general directorate, etc. So the team of people is amazing. It's really huge. In 2016, around 10 million services have been delivered, including also the internet-based services. Twitter Spain said to us the other day that we are the first administration in the world delivering services through the internet. You can use Twitter to access the residential areas, for example. It is multi-channel, so the same attention by the telephone and through contact, direct contact, or through the web page, and tens of services are delivered for information, procedures, whatever. On top of this, as you can imagine, this is a very expensive contract. So depending on whether it is delayed or not, it will be about over 60 million euros worth of a contract. The end of the previous year will take place in December, and then there will be a period before the new contracting contract. So we decided that it could be a pilot project to incorporate the Integrity Pact. So we did a preliminary market consultation. So we provoked the market, not just the companies, the market as a whole, asking them for the possible contributions to this service, to this contract, not just the companies. We believe that the market is made up of all the social agents, trade unions, the unions of the City Council itself, the unions of the workers in the private sector, the citizens themselves, who are the final beneficiaries of the service. They have a great deal to contribute. In this first consultation, or preliminary consultation, we thought that an integrity pact could also bring something. So we had 2 phases. A first phase through an independent expert, José María Jimeno, who is the director of the Observatory for Public Procurement. So we did this preliminary consultation in this first phase with all the guarantees, with all the transparency requirements, and then a second phase of the Integrity Pact, which would have 2 sub-phases. One would be the bid itself, the contracting, how the contract is granted, and then a second sub-phase, which is actually the performance, the execution of the contract. So we have great expectation of how much this can bring to the City Council of Madrid. Let me just give you 2 brief strokes, because now comes the time to think about what the indicators could be, how we can build this Integrity Pact. But let me give you 2 strokes. One, about the rights of the workers who are affected by this contract. The sector to which this contract belongs is one which is especially messy as regards the rights of workers. They have a collective agreement. These are workers that have normally been in a precarious environment. It has been easy to delocalize with call centers hundreds of kilometers away. So this has brought about precariousness. The City Council of Madrid has taken a distance traditionally from the establishment of this working relationship, and it has delegated it to the collective agreement without playing any role. We, as a governing team, we believe that the City Council does have a role to play in the working situation of the workers. Aside from the political ideology, there is a direct impact of that aspect on the service. So we decided to apply this contract. We decided to apply a decree, a City Council decree establishing the social clauses in public procurement. So we have a set of clauses that can be included in the public contracts, and these clauses establish in the contracting process some measures for stability in the jobs, working conditions, looking more deeply into fundamental issues like safety at work, training for employees, training that may be paid for by the company when it never used to be the case in the past. Set of measures, because the City Council cannot just alleviate the situation of the workers in these fields, but it has very little capacity for controlling that those clauses are actually being applied. Given all the complexities of the system, so the City Council has great difficulties, or will have great difficulties, to confirm what the conditions are, whether the clauses are being complied with. Something as simple as knowing whether the company has paid the monthly wages to the workers. So we've seen cases in which the City Council was paying a company, and the company was suffering financial difficulties, so the company was not paying the workers. The workers went on strike, and the strike, of course, affected the City Council. So this is a space in which we have great hopes that the Integrity Pact will be of help. And then another issue, which is more internal, has to do with a space of a space in which we believe that we might have corruption. In fact, every month I pay a bill to the current contractor. The invoice is on my table. I sign that invoice, and this will bring about a transfer of over €1 million to that company. I was very surprised from the very first day that there was no regulation, no control, no supervision on me to see when I was signing that money transfer. Was it when I found the invoice on the table? Was it 2 weeks later, 4 months later? I had absolute freedom. I had absolute discretion. I'm talking about over €1 million that are paid every so long. So if you hold that payment for a company, you are really hurting the company, and there is such a degree of discretion. So you can make the decision quickly, or you can make the decision slowly. Sometimes those money transfers involved tens of thousands of millions of euros. We are very pleased and very optimistic that this Integrity Pact may represent controlling ourselves, rendering of account on our part. If there is a delay on the payment, in the payment of an invoice, why was that? Who made the decision, based on what? So this is just a brief example. There are other factors influencing the execution of the contract, of the Línea Madrid contract, but this is the project in a nutshell. I hope it gave you some ideas. Thank you so much.
Gracias, Ana. Gracias por la...
Thanks, Anna, for your invitation. You may have heard me on other occasions. I always say that the CNMC, for a few years now, it is not that we disobey the law, we don't disobey the Constitution, but we're not slaves to the law. We try to go beyond it. We've been doing it for years, and this has greatly to do with the integrity pacts, has to do with the possibility of incarnating them in a rigid legal structure. We're not satisfied with all the pieces of legislation. We wanted an efficient text, but we have the same text as we ever had before, with some additions. I'm showing you a few things here. I'm not selling what we do, but this shows where we are heading for. 2 years ago, we decided that we would not contradict the law, but we will not only do what the law says. We have to support our workers, so we created, this is the intranet of the CNMC. I'm authorized by the president to work here. There is a complaints office here. We supervise all the IBEX certified companies, and this is the complaints area. The only problem with this complaints area, as you know, there is a law saying that the complainant must identify himself or herself. We're currently working on the encryption of this department, of this area. I'll later explain the integrity pact. We have to imitate this. We supervise the IBEX or IBEX certified, and we need to make public. We cannot make public the names of the participants. This is Transparency International. With the limitations of this law, this is a registration of lobbyists, which is voluntary. When a large company asks us what is the advantage of being in this complaints area, we say it's voluntary, it is not mandatory. So the good governance, discussion, all that has to do with the fact that it is voluntary to be registered. The code of conduct lays down that there needs to be traceability. So if someone meets with me and he or she is registered, then that person will appear as registered in this area. As for consumers, we're working on this. The lack of protection in Spain is really in the area of consumers. Users and consumers. So I urge you to look at our webpage. On consumers, go to energy. We will be working on energy because we need to discuss the obligations of the incumbent companies as well as the rights of the consumers. The regulations affect the regions, the autonomous regions. So we need to work with the incumbents. We need to remind them of their obligations with regard to the rights of the consumers. And we have no limitations there. As reference point, go to a web page and look at these useful instruments. The buyers of offers. Here you can clearly see if you are where you should be for electricity, for gas, for hydrocarbons. One can compare their invoice and say, well, why am I not under the regulated part? And then a person can ask questions about the additional services and all that. Compliance indicators. There is a gap in rendering of accounts, so we have public audits and we deliver them to the audit commission of the Congress, of the government. We promised a series of things, and we audit the internal control, and we send our audit results to the commission, in the parliament. It's here. We tell the heads of the Commission, you told us you were going to do something, but you don't. This is the rendering of account part. Transparency portal, the same. We know that the law for the transparency law is a great movement forward. I think the work of the Transparency Council of the government is heroic. It's amazing. This is our web page. Over here, we have resistance that has to do with the pacts, with the integrity pacts. The integrity pacts help us be more self-critical. One of the first meetings that I had on the integrity pacts were about whether there would be delays in the process. To have someone external helping us be more clean, will speed up the processes. Transparency, well, this is what we are working on. We're working on objective indicators for measuring the transparency, allowing everyone to measure their own degree of transparency. Contracting, what have we done here? When I talked about transparency international, we had it very clear that we needed a pact, an integrity pact. We think that a contract gives us a margin to introduce the risk prevention area, but this is already present in the private sector. We have, a checking list. That's all we have. But after all that checking, all that supervision of the accounts tribunal, we can wonder whether that is efficient enough. This is a map of contracting risks. If I overcome the internal obstacles, this is difficult because we are civil servants and. It is very, very difficult. There is a law from 1967. This is a pilot project that we wish to introduce for intermediary guarantees. But there's nothing stopping us doing it. What stops us bringing this forward? The list of conditions should include the management of risk issues. We are the CNMC, and we have a department that looks at this. We examine the list of conditions, of bidding conditions. When they are not correct, we have a friendly discussion and we challenge those list of conditions. This is a difficulty for the pacts. Because when one looks at the integrity pacts, the first thing we need to look is whether there is enough expertise for the integrity pact. And on this issue, I believe that we have made mistakes in contracts because of the rigid legal text, but we have expertise. We have CNMC, which is quite powerful. It trains the rest of the government departments. We have agreements with municipal bodies, and we are very pedagogic. So we need internal preventive controls. Over here, we have a control department, but we need intervention of more parties in some areas. Sometimes we need to examine whether expenditures are efficient. We have taken into account drafts, amendments to the law, but we want more actors, more parties to take part, saying, well, we need to do this right now, and then the president will decide. but there is a preliminary consultation on the market, more common formulas like the legal service report. This is the application of the already existing system in the private sector, applying it to the public sector. This is a risk map. There's a risk map showing the possible impacts, the timings. We have collusion. We have specific practices, malpractices, with complex legal formulations. Preventive controls is also very important. So we have been working exclusively on prevention, on detection. We're working on detection and prevention. We need to be preventive, not just reactive. This is a fixed cash system. We have a very good operational system that collects documentary evidence of everything happening in the contracting procedures. We can then see who is bringing in documents or withdrawing documents. We can see who has access or downloaded the documents, mass downloads. We have all the opportunities. Can I have 10 more seconds? Integrity pacts. We work in this way, so the integrity pacts are fully in line with what we want. But we have internal difficulties, as the Director General mentioned. This is a very rigid system, and with our recast text, with Law 39, with Law 1599, we need to introduce the integrity pacts. So far, they have been internal, but there's nothing stopping us having less members in the contracting table. This is a decree from 2009, and there's no limitation as to the members. You can have 25, 37, many members in the contracting table. But what are the limitations for the external members? What are the limitations by virtue of the fundamental rights? I promise here that we need to have an integrity pact. For many of the contracts, like security, cleaning, we're not doing things right. But this is because of how rigid the recast text is. We have procedural gaps. We have future grants to companies that have very damaging collective agreements, etc. So this is a set of obstacles for what we need to do at the end of the day. Thank you, and forgive me for my speed.
Bueno, Carlos, lo vamos.
Well, Carlos, we take note. You have to choose a procedure that is interesting for you to have this external supervision, and we can do this. Esteban Arribas, he's a researcher from TI España. You have the floor. Thank you very much, Ana. Yes, we take note, as Ana is saying, and as you can see, this is one of the processes that we do to launch these pilot integrity packs in Spain. We know the different capabilities, we know the situation that exists, and we knew that this organization wanted to have an integrity pact. And not long ago, we launched these integrity pacts, as the one that we have signed on the April the 5th with the City Council of Madrid. First of all, I wanted to give you a bit of context in terms of concepts. Just a few minutes with regard to my other profession. I'm a teacher of political science at the University of Alcalá, by saying the following. What are integrity pacts? from the point of view of the political context? Well, these are tools that can be applied to these new times where accountability is essential to be able to build quality democracies. We are going beyond just simple elections every 4 years. It's not only that citizens ask for this, request this. We are currently in a moment of delegitimization of the current institutions that is very serious due to corruption. This is obvious, it is clear. The processes of public procurement, an incredible niche for corruption, in many cases, not always, are a good example to build something new. Why is this? Well, because what we have doesn't work. Does this mean that if we improve what we have, we wouldn't need integrity pacts? Well, probably not, but if the situation does not improve, as Mr. Balmisa has said, with great concern, we need someone that acts as a facilitator, catalyzer, because Anna likes this word. We are catalyzers of initiatives, and we give this possibility to society. We're talking about administration, public administrations, civil society, companies. We don't talk about companies. But corruption always entails two parts, not only one. And companies are also accountable for this sphere of the public that Habermas mentioned. And this is something that we have to improve. How do we do this? Well, balancing the responsibilities of the different stakeholders, different actors. We, as citizens, are actors, of course. But obviously, we need these channels of participation. Once we have said this, let me tell you about the process of design of the different strategies that have led us to talk with different public administrations, with different companies, to design the idea of the Integrity Pact and implement it. Because we firmly believe in this tool. It is a good tool, not only to help us identify risks related to corruption, but also to identify mismanagement. In many cases, civil servants are pressured, under pressure from others, and they do last-minute contracts with this pressure, under pressure, that are not necessary from the point of view of efficiency, integrity, etc. So how we do these things is essential. How we elaborate the processes of public procurement. And transparency is going to help us improve in the future these procedures. Integrity pacts are the element that foster this improvement in this innovation of the democratic quality. We started this process 2 years ago. I am responsible together with Mr. Villoria, of the area of procurement and public integrity. And our goal is to develop integrity pacts in Spain. We've talked to many administrations, many counterparts, heads of departments, general directors, councillors, experts, etc., all over Spain, up to where the financing led us. We've talked at all the different levels. Some conversations nearly turned into pilot integrity pacts. We also talked to other public organizations. The CNMC is offering itself now, currently, the National Commission for Competition and Markets. We can sign it now. I mean, it is a good example of what I think is happening inside this organization, the CNMC. It is necessary, first of all, to have a political will. Technicians here represented know this perfectly, and they know this from the legal point of view. I'm not a legal expert, but there must have been an internal consensus for this. Why? Well, we need to have a clear political will. And this is what we have achieved in little time at the City Council of Madrid. It seems that we're here advertising the City Council of Madrid, but it is the first one, and we can only talk about them. And the political will of his delegate, Pablo Soto, his team, General Director of Transparency and Legal Services, this has been essential. We need to have political will, but at the same time we need to build on it. We need to have consensus. And I'm being interested lately on how to build this political will from the outside. But it's very interesting, but it is very complicated. I feel like a salesperson. I sell integrity packs all over Spain. Political will, this is essential. The idea of what is public here in Spain. Mainly, we have this idea, but from the legal point of view, there's no real flexibility, multidisciplinarity in the approach to what is public in Spain. Most of the experts are legal experts. Law is not flexible. Well, it depends. They have told us that, yes, there are certain margins, there are certain areas to maneuver. Why? Well, because there's political will. Once again, will to believe in something. In other communities, city councils, etc., the first obstacle, and in many cases impossible to overcome, is the intervention of the city council, the community. They have arguments. We also have arguments against that. And this is why we need to know that political will has to be 100% clear. Is the integrity pact the wonder, the solution to everything? No, it is one more tool, as Mr. Boymans just said. Communication is essential. How we communicate with regard to data protection, etc., but it's just one more tool. What have we achieved up to now? Well, Madrid, that has been explained in detail by the delegate, the representative from the city council. We have other communities, other city councils. We are about to sign these projects. 2 are preparing the conventions. 1 is already prepared. The other one was prepared 2 years ago. And this is going to be signed soon. Examples of public contracts. In the case of Madrid, we have the monitoring of the first year of this service. On the contrary, we also have other examples. We have public works, construction, we have schools. It is clear we have a beginning and an end. We know when the monitoring ends. In the case of a service, well, we have 4 years of service, 2 more years extension. This is also possible. This would be something that is very long, and maybe 1 year of observation, of monitoring, would allow us to draw lessons. Do I have time? 1 minute. What have we learnt? Well, mainly it is a European problem. It is a democracy problem. It has to do with national culture. There's a national culture, a regional culture issue. Political moments also are important. When to talk with whom, when there are elections about to happen, forget about it. More coalition governments, this is depending on the moment. We will talk to some people or others, but it is essential to have political will. And one of the questions that could be raised, and I'm going to raise it myself, has to do with funding. We haven't really mentioned in detail this matter, but this has a cost. Who funds this? Well, this is not really that important, but obviously it is essential to protect the independence of the process. The monitors, the civil organization that is undertaking this process together with the civil council. Independence is essential. It has to be protected, but funding is not that essential with regard to this. We have different formulas, different options, because in many cases we talk with public authorities, with the city council, that might say, well, this is an extra cost that we cannot take on. And as we have said this before, processes can be more agile, can be more quick, but this is not a cost, it is an investment. And if we analyze the costs, we will see that this investment is minor. It is really, really small. And we don't aspire to convert this into an additional big cost, just what is just and what is necessary. This is my experience. Thank you for coming, and I'm going to give the floor to the moderator. Thank you very much. Well, this is your opportunity to ask all the questions that you might have with regard to integrity pacts. I'm sure you have many, many doubts. You can then also contact us, but this is your opportunity right now. Good morning, Héctor Aguirre, Seopan. Taking into account that Pablo Soto is here, I'm going to take this opportunity to ask him about the situation of the development of the Transparency Act. There were certain directives with regard to the registration of lobbies, etc., that was pending an agreement of the plenary of the City Council. And this was approved in August. I don't know what is the current situation of this. As lobby, we are interested in the registration. We are also registered with the Parliament and the CNMV, and I would like to know what is the current status quo with regard to the possibility of registering as a lobby.
Bueno, qué alegría.
It's great to hear a lobby or a company saying we want to register. This is great to hear. This happens quite a lot. Contrary to what was said when we were negotiating with the other political parties, in June 2016, the extremes with regard to the registration of lobbies in the city council, everyone was saying they're going to run away, they're not going to want to do this, etc. But the feedback is totally contrary. All the agents that want to have the right to interact with the public administration want it to be a transparent process. We took this to the Commission of the Open Governments and Transparency area. This has been approved with the abstention of the political Partido Popular, the Socialist Party, and Ciudadanos, the other political parties. So it is a strange situation. Normally, the government would say no to the transparency initiatives led by the opposition. And here, right now, No, sorry, yes, the Socialist Party voted in favor for this. Yes, that's true. From the approval at the Commission, this goes to the plenary. The plenary would take place on the 27th, in a week's time, maybe 27th or 28th. We have 2 days. If the general lines or guidelines of the registration of lobbies is approved, then we will have a 6 months period during which the government has to launch this. There will be an agreement that will establish certain guidelines with the technical details of who does what in the midst of the structure of the city council. If this is approved in the plenary, in principle it will be. I don't think there'll be any problems with this, any change in the Socialist Party. Probably at the end of the year it will be operational. Now we do have a party from the opposition that has said that they are going to present certain procedures and suggestions of modifications. We have Thibio, the Council of Transparency, and the citizens in general, and we have certain comments that have been made. The political parties haven't made any comments, and we have heard opinions during the debates, but there hasn't been any formal comment. And this situation frightens me, I have to say. It seems that it's like a monkey with a rifle. After a solid text, maybe we can have the suggestion of a modification that will try to take away the essence of this text and add maybe an exception to this registration of lobbies, and maybe in a certain way will take away the power that it has, the essence that it has. This can happen, but so we will have to be attentive to the plenary of next week. Thank you very much. More questions?
Hola, muchas gracias.
Thank you. Good morning. Maite Arcos. I work in Orange. I'm also a civil servant, and I'm quite hurt by all these corruption cases and doubts. Each time that there's a corruption case in public procurement, there's a company behind this, and this is my question for Esteban. Have you thought that maybe the companies can use this tool, the integrity packs? And for Pablo and Carlos, in this adventure that you're taking on to go beyond the law, is it possible that administrations would maybe be positively evaluating these companies that are using the integrity packs? Thank you very much for the question. Well, firstly, a figure that I didn't mention before. In Spain, thanks to a study done by the Observatory for Transparency, together with Transparency International, there's a specific portal with regard to transparent contracts, and it says that 39% of tenders in Spain have one single tenderer. So the question would be, an integrity pact is an agreement between the administration and the companies. And the third pillar is the civil society through the figure of the monitor. So the company that wants to tender in this formula is signing an integrity pact. But maybe we should talk more about companies. This is what you are suggesting. This project that has been led by Anna in Transparency Internationally has to do with the integrity of corporations, so that in companies we have a promotion of the fact that companies need to have ethical codes of conduct, etc. So we need to reach out to all the different stakeholders. But in this case, considering that public funds come from taxes, etc., it is mandatory if someone wants to tender if the specific contract has to be integrated in this formula, in this process. It is a pilot pact, and companies have to be accountable. It is a debate that we haven't had here in Spain, especially in the media, especially because a lot of these corruption cases have companies behind them. Crisis of media, digitalization, etc. This is another complex topic, but we don't talk about companies, and we talk very little about companies, and this is something that needs to change. And if they are accountable and they have integrity, they have to have a certain reward. For last months in the CNMC, we've been launching different reports with regard to that, and we also talk about anti-competition regulations. So, of course, what companies have to do previously with a preventative approach have to develop scenarios to be able to avoid what has already happened. So we should do this with a preventative approach. This also there has to be another approach which is reactive. This is established in the law. The Commission knows this, that the compliance programs can have a mitigating effect, but this has to do with many areas, with the prevention of labor risks, etc.
Muy brevemente,
just briefly, to positively assess companies that want to sign these pacts. Well, in our case, in these contracts, these pacts are mandatory. And right now, for the moment, this is a pilot program. It is an application of something that we think is going to be very positive, and we think that thanks to its success, maybe this will be integrated in some sort of regulation of the area of economy of the city council, maybe from a certain amount upwards in certain conditions. This is the objective, the final objectives, to integrate this in the processes of the city council. Then we have other difficulties that might exist in the legislation. We can oblige them to include this condition in the pacts, to sign an integrity pact, to be able to access that tender, that contract related to the tender. If we manage to do this in the City Council of Madrid, well, I'll be really, really happy. Just a few more questions. I would have many more questions to ask, so we had more here, I think. A question to the three speakers, starting out with Esteban. Congratulations for your passion for these matters. Citizen participation could be fostered through these integrity pacts to avoid cases such as the case of Gamonal. That for a question for Esteban. For Carlos, not long ago, I think last year we were told off because we weren't reporting on the platform of integrity. Not long ago, it was said that we reached 60% of the publication of tenders. What is the recommendation that the CNMV can do to the public administration so that we really reach 100% of the transparency of publication? Pablo, you've talked about the point of view of transparency. Which activities would you be able to coordinate with the procurement department of the City Council so that this really is promoted and boosted? This is what we all want, I think. Please, short answers. And the answer is yes. Yes. It would be another way of having participation through an integrity pact, but we would need to have a policy of participation of the public institution where the integrity pact takes place. When we talk about citizen participation, we run the risk of only having the involvement of those who are interested or organize or have time to be organized. But citizen participation, this topic is quite complex, but an integrity pact, well done from the beginning. But if you want to go beyond the minimum requirements of citizen participation, of course, this can be focused in this way. So this is a participation in itself. International transparency is now undertaking the integrity pacts, but as Pascal has explained, any organization from civil society, if it's prepared for it and if possible with the experience, this can use this tool. Any other organization can use the tool. I don't know if I am answering your question with this. What could have happened? I can't really answer. I just want to hear Gabriela with regard to integrity pacts and citizen participation. She has the floor.
Thank you. Sorry to take the floor again. It's just, it was the right time for me, but I already had this idea when Esteban talked about that this is also about democracy, because I think one of the biggest threat to democracy, is the apathy of the citizens. And I don't know the situation in Spain, but at least in Hungary, we did several surveys. And it turned out that citizens know what corruption is. They recognize the corrupt cases, but they are in complete apathy. Like 80% of them wouldn't report it, wouldn't do anything about it. They just accepted that this is the way how things are. And this is an important part of this pilot project the European Commission launched. That now we haven't done that in Hungary, but this is also new for us. But we will, within the framework of this project, we will try to organize local activities for those citizens that are affected directly by the investment, by the motorway, and so on. So I know that this is not maybe a big thing, but this is a start to, because I also think that we need to deal with the apathy of the citizens if we want to live in a normally functioning democracy. So just this short intervention I wanted to make.
Muy bien, pues contestáis Carlos y
Carlos and Pablo, in 30 seconds. I believe that we have moved forward a great deal in contracting transparency, but there are many ways of contracting. There are so many municipalities, thousands. But taking into account two variables, Article 8.1 of the Transparency Act and the recast text, where we can see that the great gaps in contracting, all is going to be published, and there is a possible appeal with the Supreme Court, etc. Harmonized regulation. Yes, harmonized regulation. There are amendments removing the great shortcoming related to the profiles, aside from the recast text, etc. But I think, in summary, we have moved forward greatly in contracting, indeed. As for the idea of making this practice more extensive, widening it, well, we've had a pilot project on Integrity Pact, which is going forward in the City Council of Madrid with a contract of 70 million euros. I don't know how many contracts or pacts, integrity pacts there are in Europe worth this amount. There is legal advisory. There is a system that is fully prepared to make it systematic. And I can confirm that based on the success of this pilot project, we could sign a decree making mandatory to apply this in all the contracting processes of the City Council of Madrid. Maybe with specific criteria, maybe not for minor contracts, I don't know. But if it is successful in the City Council of Madrid, it can also be successful in the 80,500 city councils of Madrid, and maybe even in the regional governments, and maybe in the central government. As a pilot project, it has great potential. Although it was not my question, I was stricken by the Amonal case. A thought came to my mind. I don't know whether the Integrity Pact could include a clause whereby it would be articulated what the rights of opposition is for citizens. In Switzerland, when politicians want to pass a specific expenditure of over so many euros, then they need to organize consultation with the citizens. There is another type of referendum, which is the referendum of opposition. It is optional. When there is a decision of the government, if you have so many signatures, then the government cannot apply that regulation until there is consultation and confirmation by the citizens. I don't know whether we could not include a clause in the Integrity Pacts in articulating some kind of opposition for cases like Amonal. If you remember, public works were going to be made on a neighborhood. 90% of the people of the neighborhood did not want those works in the area. It was an underground parking lot. I think the reaction of the government was quite aggressive against the citizens. The citizens then responded more aggressively, so there was great conflict, and in the end, the neighbors won. There were arrested persons, wounded persons, even damaged persons. But maybe in a more civilized way, we can have the same situation, and the Integrity Pacts might be a legal way. If there is a cost of over so many millions, whatever, then the government will need to organize some participative schema to organize the expenditure. The mic is off at the moment, so we cannot provide translation. I'm sorry.
Vamos a aceptar una pregunta más.
Let's take one more question.
Vale. Pues el micrófono, por favor. ¿Sí? ¿No?
Mike. No. Anyone else wants to ask a question? Okay. Pedro del Rosal from El Economista newspaper. I have several questions to Esteban about this third-party figure, which is a bit vague to me. Just reply the ones you wish, but among among whom should we appoint these third parties? How do we preserve independence is another question beyond the financing. For example, is it essential for it to be a figure of the private society or maybe some kind of public institution with guaranteed independency? How does it work? Is there assistance of experts, because not all the members of the civil society should know about the water contracts, for example? And how would we articulate the monitoring of the rendering of account? There are timings, permanent information that can be consulted, press releases, I don't know. Communication is a very important element. And then a more practical question. When you are selling the integrity pacts, what has been the response of the public administrations? Mistrust, reluctancy, no interest at all? What has been the feedback? Okay, maybe this question should have been at the beginning because it is very extensive. So I'm going to ask Esteban to briefly try to respond it, and then maybe you can continue the conversation afterwards. It is a challenge, but I mean, I don't talk so much as she does. She's unstoppable. I don't talk so much, but or maybe we can ask Carlos Balmisa, who's quite a speaker as well. So how can we summarize all of this? Well, the first idea is the fact that Transparency International is a facilitator, so we facilitate this monitoring process. So Transparency International makes a public call. Well, it made it already, inviting everyone to send their resumes for becoming a monitor. In the case of Madrid, we needed a telecommunications expert, an expert on labor law, and an expert on public communication. So we launched the public call, as the responsible officer of the second area. I don't form part of a selection committee because I will later work every day with them. So in order to avoid the conflict of interest, I still don't know who the monitors are, and they've already been appointed. So who forms part of this selection committee? Ana Revuelta as director of the project, José María Jiménez Feliu, an external expert, very prestigious expert in Spain and abroad, and Manuel Villoria, internal advisor of this objective number 2. So criteria are launched, then published, and then the selection takes place. This is how we avoid the intervention of transparency. So it is really the civil society that we don't know at all who send their call. There is a governance system as well with the City Council of Madrid, which is quite interesting. There is a committee for the follow-up of the pact. It is parity with 2 persons, Ana Revuelta and myself, for Transparency International. And for the City Council, there is the legal department of each area. Pablo Soto is one of them. So we design what we wish to communicate to report. The City Council will communicate its part. We will communicate our part. And then there is a 4th monitor who is an expert on communication. In that communication process, which is in its early stages, we're working on it. We will decide, we will see what we can communicate, what we can't, because we need to take into account the data protection of the bidding companies. And lastly, my perception is that, well, culturally, innovation is not well accepted. It is rather rejected, in fact. The idea of the public things is always framed in a rigid legal system. Internal consensus are important. If we're talking about small city councils, they see it as an expenditure because they are very limited, very much under pressure on their budget. They are indebted. As for the large municipalities, the large city councils, they don't see it as an opportunity, save Madrid, of course, as regards the Integrity Pact. So my feeling, I have no data, my perception is that, in fact, there is greater concern for the image as regards initiatives that have to do with transparency than there is about the merits, really, application, measuring, evaluation of those transparency processes by means of an Integrity Pact. And this is where political willingness comes into play, and this is it. Okay, it's 1:30, but I don't want us to leave without a little conclusion. First of all, thank you all for having come. We've been discussing public procurement, which is essential also from the social point of view. We talk about rendering of accounts, transparency, and of course, efficiency and free competition, competitiveness. I wish to end on a positive note. We've looked at Europe. It's been quite quick, but don't hesitate to consult whatever you need from us in Transparency International. We've looked at the early stages of the experience at the Council of Madrid. Transparency International recently made an assessment of the 20 years of integrity pacts in the world. And I would like to say goodbye with the positive advantages that these pacts have shown in over 20 countries in very different contexts, in Europe, in Latin America, in Asia, etc. So what have they made possible with the testimonies that we have? Let me read out 7 advantages. Preventing malpractices like collusion, rigging of bids, fraudulent bids, conflicts of interest. They've generated trust and they've encouraged companies operating with different ethical standards. They've made possible to reduce the cost of procurement with better quality offers, more competitive, and offers that prevent legal actions. They've made possible to conduct real-time control of public procurements by external parties and an increase in transparency levels. This real-time control improves the procurement process and resolves later problems. They've also made possible to improve the reputation of the public institutions, proving an adamant commitment against corruption. They have ensured the citizen support to large public procurement projects. We've mentioned Gamonal. I remember an event, the potential procurement for Eurovegas. Luckily, it was stopped. We would have been happy if we had integrity pacts. In that case, it also makes possible to demonstrate leadership for the public institution. There are also clear advantages for companies. There may be other companies hearing us on the streaming. To participate in an integrity pact improves the reputation of a company and the reputation of the companies of that sector. The company is protected from malpractices by other competitors, practices that go against the law or against good practice, best practice. It prevents fines and reduces cost. They represent an additional channel for the collection of complaints because the external monitors also act as mediators, and when they detect an irregularity, they can warn the administration. The company, of course, participates in some form of collective action against corruption. And then lastly, something which is very important, these pacts contribute to the creation of a more predictable and healthier business environment. And this is for the benefit of everyone. So I wish to end with this positive note, and I want to invite you all to come and see us, whether you are a company or a public body, citizens, media, interested in the Integrity Pacts. Thank you very much.